This is the first effect of our new category of overdrive, amp simulators, and mic modelers. This is the overdrive and high gain wah. I'm going to move kind of quickly. So basically, this unit sums to mono. It has two different kinds of distortion types. And then we push the drive, we can lower the output level. We have a direct mix control for whatever reason. And then we have a speaker simulation with an low cut. So let me just run through all of the examples. I'm not going to cover the wah since I have already done that in a previous video, but let me use a drum loop to point out that overdrive at 100 is similar. It is a little bit different, but it's similar to high gain. By the way, the plugin is incorrectly labeled hyper gain, but it's similar to high gain at a drive level of 15. So let me show you what that sounds like with a drum loop. So here is with the overdrive. This is clean. Overdrive. And high gain. And of course, high gain has the ability to, since this parameter is so low, we can drive it way harder and get crazy distortion. By the way, I already did mention that it sums to mono. If you do want this effect in stereo, you could just use a parallel processor down at like kind of the lower end, and you do have the ability to use the overdrive high gain. Of course, you don't have the wah section, and you don't have the direct amount mix, but I mean, you still have wet dry, which is essentially the same thing, except with dry wet mix, it scales with how do I describe this? It crossfades, and so you don't get a boost in volume by like you would with just the direct mix. I still don't understand the practicality of the direct mix. Actually, let me just pop over the manual. This is our signal path. Let me see what. Let's see, direct mix. It says sets the amount of dry sound mixed to the distortion. Yep, I don't really understand it. I don't know if there's like some kind of special technique that's useful for, but whatever. Moving on, we have an EQ. Okay, I'll just use the high gain one. We have an EQ afterwards. We have a low shelf, and then two parametric bands. And the next thing that I want to talk about is let's go over the speaker simulation of the low cut. So I'm gonna bust open Cubase. Here I have noise. That noise is passing through a saturator right now, the high gain. Let me actually take drive all the way down, and then let me boost the output level. Boost up a lot. So this is with speaker simulation on. So all speaker simulations do, and I didn't know this, but they all just are like weird EQ curves. They don't actually impart any coloration on the sound other than the curve. I might sneeze. I don't know. I've been sneezing like every video. I don't know what's up with that. Anyway, yeah, speaker simulations, all of them. I didn't know that. Like by Steinberg, by UAD, whoever. Speaker simulations are just wacky EQ curves. I had no idea. I thought maybe they were adding like distortion, saturation, but they don't. So aside from that, we do have that pre-low cut, which is just like kind of like a little high pass. It only goes up to 10. You can see that's it with it on 10, and that's with it on 0 on 10. I don't know if that's necessarily like a 6 dB per octave thing or what, but it's just a super gentle low cut. And if I just take off speaker simulation, that's just it by itself. You can see the speaker simulator doesn't actually affect that low range. But it's kind of nice that you get these like nice tiny little options to help control how we're hitting the distortion unit. Actually, let me double check that graph. Yeah, so we have that pre-low cut, and where's our speaker simulation? So I guess the speaker simulator is actually after the drive unit. So only the low cut is affecting how we're hitting the drive unit. And then this is basically just an EQ, which is not so dissimilar from having an EQ, just that other EQ. But yeah, this looks like the last thing in the signal chain. Oh, wow. And it looks like the direct mix is affected by the speaker simulator. So I didn't know that. Let's check out a cool technique that I wanted to show off. So we have things that respond linearly to the volume of a sound. Things like EQ, reverb, delay, those don't change depending on the volume. But something like overdrive does. The more volume you give it, the more it will saturate the sound, the more it'll morph or distort the waveform. So we can use that idea to our advantage. And I've set up a signal path right now where I have a mastering EQ going into the distortion unit and then another 3-band EQ. The reason I'm using the stereo mastering EQ is because I get to control the high and low shelf amount with a mod source. And in this case, I'm using the vector joystick. So the vector joystick is just controlling the amount of bass. I have the volume of the low EQ at 60 hertz, and then it's also controlling 500 and above for the high, for the high source, for the high EQ shelf. So that way, when I move my, actually, let's just listen to this by itself. That way, when I move my joystick, plus Y, then we get more bass. Here, let me play the drum loop. And if I move it down, we get a bass cut. And then if I move X to the right, get more highs, move to the left, cut highs. And then I did the same thing with this one, except the opposite. So that way, when I boost my Y, I'm bypassing the distortion unit. We actually don't get any change. I can move this all around. We don't get any change in sound. But what does change is how frequencies are hitting the distortion unit in between them. So when I turn on distortion, I can, let me go over, I can boost just the bass. Hear how the kick is now super distorted. Or I could cut the bass going into the unit. Now I have clean bass that's not distorted. It's almost like creating a makeshift multi-band distortion unit. Distort the highs. How about distorting the highs and having clean bass? How about having both clean? How about having both super distorted? How about having the highs clean, but then having the bass distorted? Pretty neat. So yeah, emphasis, de-emphasis, EQ allows us to get a ton of flavors out of a distortion unit. And we could use it with any distortion unit or any non-linear, that is non-linear based on volume, any non-linear unit. But off the top of my head, distortion units are the only thing that I can really think of that are non-linear. So yeah, hopefully this was kind of neat and interesting and you got something out of it. Oh, I guess I should mention that the EQ that's in the unit can still change the sound aside from what the emphasis and de-emphasis EQs are doing. So basically, I can get my distortion flavor, but then I still have the control to be able to change it from there. And of course, we could even get that per channel in stereo if we use like the stereo version. So like with this one, I have like the highs cut on the left channel, but then a little boosted on the right channel. It kind of makes the snare go more to the right while everything else is still in the center. But yeah, there's these plugins are super versatile, super cool. I love all of the flavors of distortion. I should probably I'll do a video one day just of a distortion shootout, and hopefully you'll find that pretty cool. But for now, I'm ending this one, and I'll see you on the next plugin. Thanks.